first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me and reaching out and just being interested and talking to me.
Yeah, of
So
course, of
thank you.
course, of course. It's I'm excited to have you on. I know you that you're a high level competitor in the IFBB, and that's the reason that I wanted to have you on. And I was wondering, like, where do you train out of? What state?
So I just moved to Texas last month.
Okay.
I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to New Jersey, northern New Jersey, like right outside of New York City about 5 years ago. So I was there. And then in the end of August, my boyfriend and we just moved to Austin.
Mm-hmm. So, was there like a particular reason that you moved to Texas?
Really, it was just for a lifestyle change. My boyfriend, he's retired law enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
and so he wanted to get out. He's born and bred in New Jersey, so he wanted to get out of there.
Sure.
He was over it, and I work from home. I work all remote, so I can go anywhere. So we
Yeah,
said, let's do it.
that's exciting. I know in Texas, from a bodybuilding standpoint, Texas is a huge hotbed. Like there's a lot of competitors, training out of Texas. So I don't know exactly which cities, but I know Austin is one of them. Yeah, I'm not sure like about the rest, but there's definitely a lot of people that are claiming Texas when they, train and compete and so forth. So,
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I've only been here a month, so I'm still trying to figure out where to train and
mhm,
checking out different gyms. And, you know, it's been pretty hectic because of, moving across the country, as you can
mhm,
imagine. Um, so I've always been a member at LA Fitness just because, number one, I compete in the fitness division, as you know,
mhm.
and I need a big space to practice.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've always even though I've trained at other gyms that are better for my actual resistance training, I've always had an LA Fitness membership like on the side just so I can practice my performance. So when we got to Austin, I was in the middle of Olympia prep
Mhm,
and I just needed to train. So we've been going to the LA. It's like 2 minutes from my house
mhm,
for pretty much everything. Like I said, on the weekends, we've been checking out some really cool local gyms to decide like where we want to join.
mhm, mhm,
Um, for some of I'm really picky with like leg equipment and back equipment. So um, back in Jersey, it was like I went to this, one gym for leg day, one gym for back, and I think that's how a lot of us are that are really into the sport.
mhm.
It's like I have to have this one machine. Um, so I'm still searching here for, my places, but in the meantime, you can really get it done wherever. It's really about you and the workout that you do, and it is good to change up, the equipment. So yeah, I'll be trying to find another few gyms to call our home.
Yeah, it's exciting. One of the most, exciting things about like training for bodybuilding is being able to like go to different gyms and being able to like kind of see like be around different people and get a different venue. Because in general, bodybuilding is one of those sports that it's kind of repetitive. You kind of go in, you have a split, you do your split, you have everything is routine. So something like that can kind of throw things, switch things up a little bit is good. It's a good thing. I've always like I don't think I got around to going to different gyms as much as I wanted to, but that was always like exciting to me whenever I go to a different gym or I go visit like my in-laws in Florida and like I'll go to a different gym there. It was something I really like look forward to.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, like you said, even the energy, different gyms, every gym has a different energy.
Hmm.
Um, and like you said, when you get in a rut or a funk with your training, it's like it's really nice to just go to a different gym and kind of reignites your motivation. You're seeing all different types of people, and like you said,
Hmm.
it's an exciting part of the sport for sure.
Yeah, and you're, like you said, you're in a very unique position because you're one of the, one of the only division that requires, an act of athleticism in the actual performance. You could say that the entire sport, you know, uh, requires athleticism while they're training, but in the actual performance on stage, it's the only division that does that, which is makes it very unique. So, me saying, oh, well, I need like more space. I never thought about that. That, yeah, it's not just about resistance training. You also have to have like an area where you can do the tumbling. So it's pretty, interesting to think about it that way.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, some of the gyms that don't have like the big spaces, you can still practice maybe like, your hand balancing or your push-up combos or some of the smaller things. Um, but to really run the performance
Mhm.
full out like you're on stage, which is what I like to do when I practice, you need the space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So what made you decide to go into fitness? Because usually, like, not everyone, I've met one or two people that never done any kind of gymnastics or any kind of tumbling and we just went into it. But by and large, most women that I've talked to, they've had a background associated or adjacent to that kind of style. How did you get into like the fitness division?
yeah, so it's kind of a long story, but in a nutshell, so I was involved in gymnastics and cheerleading and dance and all those things growing up. But my dad actually he competed in the NPC. He was a bodybuilder.
Okay.
And so from the time that I was, 10 years old or around there, I was exposed to bodybuilding. And back in the 90s, when I was in that age range, you know, going to the bodybuilding shows, I would go to the local NPC shows in Pittsburgh, like with my dad or with, people that we knew that were into it, because that's most of my dad's friends were into bodybuilding. Um, and the only two divisions back then were bodybuilding and fitness. There was no figure, there was no bikini, there was no
Mhm.
wellness, nothing. And so I grew up seeing bodybuilders or the fitness girls. That was
Mhm.
it. And from a young age, I remember saying and knowing, like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And I actually started competing in the NPC when I was 13. I
Oh,
started
wow.
doing like the local shows in the Pittsburgh area. Gary Udit, who's one of the IFBB,
Mhm.
head judges, and he's just an incredible human being. He gave me the opportunity to start competing where he implemented a teen fitness division at some of the local shows that he promoted. Um, so I was able to get out there and perform a routine and, on stage at a bodybuilding show, and I loved it. And I just stuck with it. I did a
Mhm.
few things. I did a few teen fitness competitions. And then of course when I was, in my early 20s, I started doing the open division at that
Right.
point. But that's really how I got into it. Was I was exposed to it really young and I loved it the moment I saw it because I was
Mhm.
into the dance and all that anyway. I was already going to gymnastics center at that point. I started doing gymnastics when I was really little. And I loved it. I mean, I remember going to the gym even being like 13, 14, 15 years old. Like, and back then I could go with an adult, you could go
Mhm.
with an adult and learn how to train. And I was learning. And I remember when my first job was working, I was the desk girl at the gym. Like, I wanted to be in the gym all the time. Um, so I had both sides to it. I loved the training and then I also was in love with, the performance. So it was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, you don't see that now too much. I believe it might even be a rule now that like you have to be like a certain age to compete. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. So the the idea that you can get some stage experience at a, at such a young age is incredible, and also like super beneficial, I would think, right? Like you get used to it. It's so young. I imagine that kind of calms some of your nerves as you get older and you start competing more and more. Do you still get like nervous when you're competing, or is it just routine for you at this point?
No, it's funny that you ask me that, and a lot of people ask me that, and they're surprised usually by my answer because I will say that as the years have gone by and the bigger shows, and I've actually gone in the opposite direction. Like I
Mm.
feel like now I get more nervous than I used to. It's almost, I don't know if it's that I let the pressure of it all get, as you're getting, moving higher up and doing bigger shows, and it's almost the culmination of, you know, at this point I'm 37, so I've been doing this for about at least 20 years in some
Mm.
capacity. And I think it's looking back and seeing, everything that I've done to this point, and how much I've put into it, and how important each and every show, every time I step on stage, how important it is to me.
Yeah.
And, every how much work I've put into it. And I think I've let that pressure build up in my head. And I get, yeah, last year I did pretty well. Like last year, I think was maybe I was starting to go in the other direction again, finally, where I was like, okay, I don't feel really that nervous. And I
Hmm.
think it showed, especially in my Olympia performance last year.
Hmm.
That was my best performance on the Olympia stage ever. And I think it was because I was a little more calm, and,
And you got
I
fourth, right? You
I
got fourth
did.
place. That's incredible. I mean, congratulations on that for sure. I mean, I know we're rounding out to the next Olympian now, so it's been almost a year, but that still deserves the congratulations. Fourth in the world.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't even feel like that happened. It's
Yeah,
really strange. I'm so grateful. I mean, it was a totally a shock for me in the moment. And yeah, it's something I'll never ever forget for sure. It was awesome.
yeah. I think I kind of understand where you're coming from too, because I think once you start realizing how much is at stake, it can cause you, I'm sorry, to become a little bit more anxious. That might also like in kind of, I don't know, steam up that anxiety. I remember when I was younger, I was involved in a lot of combat sports, and when I was first getting started with it didn't matter as much if I lost or won or all that. So it wasn't that big of a deal. I would never really get anxious. But once I got pretty good at it, then there was a lot more at stake, that it was internally and externally. So then I started to get like more nervous, like, oh no, I can't fail here. Like, so
And I
it
think,
gets like
and
that.
you're so right. And I think it's more about the expectation that we put on ourselves. It's like
Hmm.
no one else cares, right?
Sure.
Like, in a way, that's no one else really cares. We
Right.
do it to ourselves. And I think for me, and exactly what you're talking about with, you start to build a sense of, in the bodybuilding community, in the shows, you start after you've done so many shows and you've been out there year after year at a lot of these big shows, you start to build almost like a reputation for what people are going to see when they see you. And you start, when, like you said, expecting, you put that pressure on yourself that makes you a little anxious, saying, well, you
Right.
know i can't I can't mess up. Like, this is what people expect to see from me. They
Yeah.
expect to see, and I think it's really just taking a step back sometimes and saying, nobody cares. You're the only one who really, yeah, is freaking out
Right.
about this.
Right.
Um,
And in bodybuilding too, like, something like anxiety, maybe other sports, it's not as detrimental. You could argue that point, but in bodybuilding, it can be very detrimental because anxiety obviously can affect your physique, without you doing anything. So, there's plenty of times where people have gotten anxious and then all of a sudden their whole physique changes, so it can happen.
yeah, and to your point about, like the combat sports, right? I mean, if you really think about it, and I'm not saying by any means that bodybuilding is not challenging and doing what we do. I mean, it's extremely difficult. But I talk about this with my boyfriend from time to time, saying, it's not like boxing or jujitsu or like you're not
Mm.
fighting anyone. You're
Right,
not,
right.
you just go out and you do your thing and that's it. It's
Mhm.
not, whereas I think, yeah, if I was in a combat sport, oh, I don't even want to know what I would feel like or act like.
Yeah.
Um, when there's actually another person that you have to worry about.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I get it. I get where you're coming from. Yeah, so so that's how you got into fitness and you went about your way. When did you get your pro card?
So I turned pro in 2014 at Team Universe
Okay.
at the Fitness Nationals there. Um, and yeah, it was awesome. I didn't win the overall, but I won my class.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got the pro card. And then I jumped right in, that was in July of 2014. And I competed 1 month later at Tampa Pro.
It's a
And
big
I
show.
got, yeah, it was amazing. And I got, I think I was fourth or fifth. I made it in the top five. I can't remember, I was fourth or fifth. Um, and then my second pro show was the Phoenix Europa that same year in October, and I won. And it qualified me for my first Olympia, which was in 2015. Um,
So how many
and s-
Olympias have you gone to at this point? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, yeah. So I've been in five. This year will be six.
wow. I mean, hey, not a lot of people can say that, right? Being six Olympias. Sometimes people, work all their lives just to go to one.
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. And, it's funny because when made it the first time, I felt that I was like, oh, this is my one shot. Like I'm probably never gonna make it again. That's how I felt. And then after I made it the second time, I was like, well, now I have to make it at least three times. And you just never the personality of someone of all of the bodybuilding community, whether you're amateur, pro, doesn't matter. It's a certain personality. I feel like you have to have certain characteristics to
Mhm.
stick with this.
Yeah.
And it's almost like everything that you accomplish, you're instantly like, okay, I need the next thing. Like
Mhm.
once I made my third Olympia, I was like, well, now I want to hit five, and then after I hit five, I'm like, well, maybe I should go for 10, like try to go and see if I can get 10 or eight. You keep just, it sucks you in. Like it's incredible how it's so addicting.
Yeah, it's a very addictive sport. Bodybuilding, which actually a lot like combat sports, it's a very addictive sport. And I wonder if, in a not necessarily in a bad way, but I wonder if it has to do with the individual aspect of it, that it's not like a team sport necessarily. There's nowhere to, nowhere to pass the ball, nowhere, to put any blame. It's like anything that you achieve is essentially, obviously you have support and you have teams and coaches and things like that, but with a broad stroke statement is essentially you, and then if you fail it's you as well. So it's kind of all rests on the individual shoulders.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I love about it is exactly what you just said. It's all on you. You're the only person that is accountable for what you show up like at the show, what you look like, how you perform, what the result is. I mean, right. There's no other way around it. And I think what you're saying about, how it's addictive in that aspect too is um for this sport forces you to really see what you are actually made of. Like I'm not talking physically, but mental strength, emotional. I mean, what you go through to do these competitions and then to continue to do it year after year after year. I think there's something special about it that um, I know for me, every show that I've done, every prep I've done, I learned so much about who I am and how strong I am either mentally or, it really actually has nothing to do with physical, which is odd because we're getting our bodies are getting judged. For me, what I love most about the sport is what it's taught me in my life, how to deal with challenges, how to overcome things, how to adapt when things aren't going the way that you want them to, and really just how to continue to push forward no matter what's going on in your life. And it's sort of like the analogy for bodybuilding for me is,
Mhm.
and that's why I think I continue to do it because I feel like it just levels me up as a person, not as a bodybuilder, but just as a person. Doing this sport has changed my life.
Yeah, the whole prepping process is so unreal to a lot of people because it's not just dieting, it's not just training, it's all the in between and the variables and the changes, and if your body responds and doesn't respond, and what do you do? And there's a lot of suffering that can be involved, for a lot of competitors to get to the place where they want to be. And all those things, including the main thing, which I think is the discipline, throughout that whole process, is so important in other aspects of life that if you can stick with it and do that, and you do that voluntarily, not because someone, is making you do that, you're competing and doing this thing voluntarily, it kind of, like you said, to your point, adds it to the rest of your life. So then when you encounter other issues in other parts of your life, you apply those same principles. You apply that discipline, and you understand what it's like to suffer a little bit and keep moving forward and not be knocked backwards. So yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah. It's a really unique sport, and it's a misunderstood sport in the mainstream. Have you encountered, people, I don't know if it's maybe family members or maybe friends or maybe just people in general, that are confused by why you're involved in this industry?
Oh yeah. I mean, on a regular basis. I mean, I think my family, not so much. And I think like I said, because I have, my dad was
Hmm.
interested in the
Right.
sport, did the sport. So it's been pretty accepted in my family. Not only accepted, but they come to all the shows. They love it. They get it.
Hmm.
Really where it was harder for me in my life was with friends and and then also like, romantic relationships,
Sure.
that kind of thing. Um, yeah, people just, like you said, it's not really accepted and they don't get it. They don't get it. So, you get the pressure of, especially like in your 20s. I mean, I don't really have it so much anymore being, in my late 30s because I think, when you're in your 20s, you have a lot of friends and everybody's going out and the partying and this and that. And you're trying to do something positive and you're doing this like for you and people don't understand it. You constantly, I remember getting, oh, like just have one drink. Like, what's it going to do? What's it's not going to hurt?
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
just don't get it. And it's really not about, okay, yeah, maybe having one drink on one night out it's really not gonna hurt my physique, right? Let's be real. But it's the mindset, it's like this sport is all or nothing. To me, it's all or nothing. It's 100% or it's zero. So, and if you try to go anywhere in the middle, in between, you're not going to succeed,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that was where it was hardest for me was a lot of judgment from people that I considered friends that, to be honest, are no longer even in my life for quite some time now.
Yeah.
You just have to make the decision of who, the people that are stick around, the people that understand and want you to do well because that's, what you want. Um, those are your real friends, and those people are still in my life, but a lot of the other people that I considered friends for a long time, um, just really never could accept it or wanted to like give me shit for it or whatever the
Hmm.
case.
Hmm.
I eventually said, like, yeah, yeah, those aren't the type of people that I want to surround myself with.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're so right. It's because a lot of times like people will, if they're really your friends, they will look at what you value and then maybe they don't value it themselves and that's fine, but if they care about you and they see what you value, they'll try to support that, to
Mm.
at least to the best extent that they can. And I mean, they're not gonna, tell you to, do something that's gonna like circumvent what you're trying to accomplish. And so, a lot of times what I hear when people from my own life and others as well, just like you, those who those who are true friends will be around, and then those who aren't eventually either you're going to make the decision to cut them off, or you're just going to grow apart. There's just no way to be able to stay together if they're if that's the kind of mentality that they have, and especially like in romantic relationships, if that's got to be even more difficult because I mean, if your partner wants to, go out and party and do things like that, it's not gonna be conducive, to what you're trying to accomplish, and your relationship is probably not gonna survive. And I assume that's probably what you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I mean, I've been very lucky, the last couple years. My boyfriend, his name's Ray. He's at all the shows with me. Um, and he loves this lifestyle. He doesn't compete, but he loves training. He never, he's at the gym with me every single day. If I'm doing cardio, he's doing cardio. If he eats the same foods as me, obviously different portions, different, but he pretty much does it all with me.
Hmm.
It's like the most supportive person I've ever had in my life. And he, even with my routine practice, he'll come and just sit and watch and say, he's seen so many routines at this point because he's come to so many shows. He gives me his feedback from like an audience standpoint, and
Hmm.
um, that's the kind of those are, and this sport is a very selfish sport. It is,
Yeah.
so, but he's been incredible. He's um that's the type of people you need in your life. And I'm not saying you need someone that's going to do every single thing with you, um, because no one can do it for you, right? You have to do it. But
Hmm.
having people around you in general like him who are, saying like, you got this, you can do this. And, on the days where I'm feeling like crap or I don't want to do my second cardio or this or that, he'll do it with me. Just, it's like, it's that extra push, through the hard moments that really makes all the difference for me in
Hmm.
my, because I always say, as you're prepping, those moments when you're like, I'm tired, I had a bad day, whatever your excuse is, why you're not going to do X, Y, or Z,
Yeah.
those little moments add up in the end, and that is what makes or breaks, I feel like, what you end up like on the day of the show. Those little
Yeah.
things that you might skip here and there, or, you can't do that.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, I like your point, and to the point of discipline, I like when you're saying it's you can't halfway do it, or you can't take these little, I don't know, breaks, you could say. I don't know if breaks is the right term. Like breaks from your discipline, because it can kind of easily unwind, And so for me personally, I'm that way. It's like if I have a goal, I need to be all into that goal. If I allow myself to take a step back and relax a little bit, a lot of times what will happen is I will just unwind, and my goal will no longer be like attainable, or at least not to the degree that I want it to be. And so I completely understand where you're coming from. And the support, is so important because without supportive people around us, it's really difficult to do something like bodybuilding. Like we said, it's so intense that like without that support it's difficult, and it's difficult to do it well. I mean, you're multiple time Olympia competitor, so you do it on a highest level. It's important to have that support.
Yeah, I am in agreement, and I feel very lucky and very fortunate because I do have, like I said, my family's super supportive, and you know, the friends that I do have, they get me, they get that this is what I want to do, and
Mhm.
so it's good. I have an awesome group of people behind me, and I definitely wouldn't, feel the same way and be, I think, in the position I'm in without all of them combined.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it really helps. It really helps.
So with you, being in the Olympia multiple times, going again the sixth time this year, do you go in there like with a certain goal? Top five, top three, win, or do you just go in there like I'm gonna do the best I can, and wherever the cards land or chips land, that's where they land.
Yeah, so my goal is twofold really, and it's the same every Olympia that I've made it. One is that I bring a better overall performance and physique than I have in the past. That's
Hmm.
always my number one goal. Um, I never have a goal regarding placing,
Hmm.
because every Olympia is different. Competitors change, the competition, every year it levels up. So I don't really focus on placing. I focus on bringing in my new best and improving in some of my weak areas that I got feedback on prior.
Hmm.
So if I can do those things, then I'm happy. I want to have another goal that I always have for the Olympia is, you know, my biggest goal is for the performance round, the routine round. Um, I want to have a clean, no errors, no mistakes.
Hmm.
So for me, the routine, if I can go out on Olympia stage and perform a solid, clean routine, um, then to me it does not matter. It doesn't matter where I place, because I did what the best that I was capable of doing. Where things get tricky is, if I make a mistake or when that's when the disappointment can come in, right? Because you know that you left a window of I didn't bring my best.
Hmm.
And like I said, when the goal is to bring your best on that day and you mess up or then I'm disappointed.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, but that's really it for me. I mean, to be honest, I also my other one of my goals in general for my fitness career was I said I would, to make it into the top five in the Olympia at least once was my like overall goal
Hmm.
for my entire career. And it happened last year. Um, and again, so I mean, at this point, going into the sixth one, I'm like, I achieved like my lifelong career goal. Um, And so whatever happens this year is, I will, as long as I have a clean, solid performance and I bring a better physique than I brought last year, I will be thrilled.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. A lot of times people do get caught up in the placings, and because it is a subjective sport, you have very limited control of that. I mean, you can do the best you can, but where you place, where the judges place you, you have no control over that. And so it's subjective to how they feel about, your physique and in your division, of course, your performance as well. So yeah, I would imagine that also helps relieve some of the anxiety. I'm sure you would be more anxious if you were trying to like play, hit a particular placing. So
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, this sport, it's very competitive. And if you compete in the IFBB, especially at the level of being in Olympia, we're all very competitive. I mean, anyone would be lying if they said that they didn't want to win the Olympia,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
I mean, that's why we do this.
right.
That's why everybody wants to be Miss Olympia or Mr. Olympia, or that is the ultimate goal, right? For everybody. Um, but I think that, like you said, it's also being realistic, being understanding that the sport is subjective and that, you know, you could bring your absolute, you could blow it out of the water and bring the absolute best thing you've ever done in your life and get ninth.
Mhm. Yeah.
And and that doesn't say anything about who you are as a competitor. It has no, to me, that um it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
As long as, if I've had so many shows where I killed it, like from my perspective,
Hmm.
right? Like knowing that, okay, I hit all my skills perfectly. That was the best physique I had that entire season. And that could have been the show where I placed the worst,
Yeah.
placing
Yeah.
wise, like
Yeah.
number. So, and then I've had other shows where I made mistakes in the routine that I knew were mistakes. Maybe they weren't obvious but I knew it wasn't maybe the best that I could have performed it. And I got a great placing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And to me, that is just proof that, like what you said, it's very subjective. And, I know as a competitor what I'm capable of bringing and how I want the routine to be performed. So if I nail it from what I wanted it to be, um, then I'm extremely happy. And like you said, whether it's received or judged a certain way, I mean, that's not gonna change my feelings about how I performed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. You being in the division for so many, years, starting so young, um, and obviously the division, but much like the sport in general, was going through changes and been through changes. What do you think, from your perspective, as far as where it was and where it is? Do you think it's going the right direction? Do you think the physiques are going the right direction and so forth? Because it's always a very controversial subject, and some people think competitors are getting too big, some people don't, and it's all over the place. So what do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the first part of the question about, how far the sport has come, I mean, if you just go back and look at a picture of fitness, just look 10 years ago,
Hmm.
right? At the top five of the Olympia. And the way that the physiques have changed, it has changed. It's a 180, it's such a drastic difference. I mean, and I think that it's a natural progression of the sport, to be honest. I mean, right, the whole point is this constant improvement. That's what bodybuilding's about, right? It's
Right.
chasing of perfection, right? But what is perfect? What is perfect? Everybody, it's subjective. So, I think as far as the fitness division, the physiques, I mean, I think we have the hardest division to judge from a physique perspective, because we are an open division where there's no weight requirements. Everybody's different heights. Everybody has different body structures. Some people were gymnasts, some were dancers. So everybody's frames are very different. So it's really comparing apples to oranges, in my opinion.
Hmm.
If you
Hmm.
look at the top five, even from last year's Olympia, the physiques, they were very different.
Yeah.
So to me, fitness is really hard to say. You have some girls that have a lot more muscle, they are bigger. Um, and that's how they want to look, and that's how they want to present their body, and that's when they're their best, and that's when they feel their best. And maybe it's how, with their skills, they've gotten stronger, they're doing more power moves, so everyone has their own strategy. And then, you have, like me, I'm 4'10". I'm super tiny. If I start stacking on all this muscle, like, it's going to have the opposite effect. I'm going to look worse,
Sure. Sure. No, I
because
understand.
you get like the bulldog kind of effect,
Uh-huh.
right? Where you're like, I have
Just
super short,
compact. Yeah.
yeah, super short legs. Like, it takes away from the aesthetically pleasing frame that we want to achieve.
Hmm.
So I think it really depends. I mean, I'm definitely in favor of, I do think that some of the fitness division, I think it is getting a little bit too extreme in the physique round, in my opinion.
Hmm.
When I think of the word fitness and, for the fitness division, think just more of like an athletic build, I understand that it also is, we are in the IFBB, right? The International Federation of Bodybuilding. So I understand that we need to have a level of conditioning. Um, but I do think that the size, I don't agree with, having any more size than we're seeing right now. If it continues
Yeah.
to go in a direction of bigger, 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 um, it's starting, and I will say at the amateur level, even as well in fitness, it can start deterring people from wanting to do the division,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of women and younger girls as well out there that have a lot of really good talent in the routine aspect. But, and this is just my experience in trying to recruit people to do fitness, because we have low numbers at a lot of the shows. But you meet a lot of young girls who, they could kill it in a fitness routine, but their first thing out of their mouth is they don't want to look like that.
Yeah.
They don't want to,
Yeah.
and so we need to find, I think, to keep the fitness division like growing and alive, I think we need to find a nice medium of what the body type and what the look should be.
Yeah.
I think it's a little all over the place right now, to be honest, because we're all so different.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I've seen a lot of videos coming out from Tyler Mannion and the league about all, the different divisions, and I've yet to see one about fitness. So
Yeah.
I am waiting.
I saw that he put one. I just actually had a girl on. There was a wellness competitor, and I saw he just put out one about wellness, about what they're looking for, because I think they're running into something kind of similar as far as size, specifically in the legs. Like women are coming in with almost bodybuilder style legs, but that's not necessarily what they're looking for. And so he kind of put that video out there to kind of correct it. And yeah, to your point, it would be good to get one for fitness. But I think because fitness is so like routine dominant, whenever someone thinks of fitness, they like primarily think of the routine. They, even though there is a physique aspect to it, it's like everyone just thinks of the routine.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think that the league has done an amazing job with um the routine judging, judging the routines
Hmm.
and and I think the level of the routines over the last few years has just been insane.
Hmm.
Like the
Yeah.
skills that we're seeing from a lot of the girls, like, I mean, it's just incredible from what it used to be.
Sure.
It's amazing right now, what the talent that's being seen at a lot of the pro shows and at Olympia, and um just I don't think people realize how hard a lot of these skills are. And the
Hmm.
other thing is, we're doing these skills on like a super hard surface. There's no mat, there's
Yes.
no, um, and it's extremely difficult. It's way more difficult than I think people realize. So, um, yeah, I think, like you said, though, I think it would be good. They did put out, a more current, modern
Hmm.
take, the league, on what they really are looking for in the physique round. Because like you said, I think it is important so that um, because it's changed so much over the years, to really kind of start getting the fitness division women and anyone who wants to do fitness on the right track of, okay, this is what we want to see in your physique round.
Sure, sure. Yeah,
Um,
I think overall, kind of outside of that, what we just spoke about, the physique round, I think if I had to pick, if somebody would, put a gun to my head and say, what's the problem with fitness? I would say it's not quality, it's quantity. I think you guys are lacking the amount of competitors, but as far as quality of the competitors that are in there, it's high level, and that goes to your point of recruitment and all these other variables that affect that aspect of it. So I don't know, that's a way more complicated problem to fix, immediate, like that. It's not going to happen like that. So
no, it's going to take a long time, but I think, hopefully we'll start seeing, like I said, a little more guidance coming out about what they really do want the fitness division, like the what direction we are going to take it in, you know, because I think a lot of the fitness girls right now in the physique round anyway, everyone's just kind of doing their own thing, right? You're just working with what you got and you're just bringing you.
Right.
And whereas a lot of the other divisions, they're that standard book that everyone's trying to achieve, and we don't have that in fitness, in my
Mhm.
opinion,
Right.
because if, like I said, if you just look at the top 5 to 10 from last year's Olympia, every single physique on that stage is drastically different.
Yeah.
You know, um, some people are super, come in super lean and they're more streamlined. Some people
Right.
have a lot more muscle and they're softer. So it's such a big, everyone's physique, in my opinion, is so different. And that's
Agreed.
what I think it would be helpful to say, hey, fitness, this is actually what we want to see.
Yeah, agreed. What do you think about adding all the divisions? Obviously the last division added a few years ago was wellness. Do you think that benefits the sport? Do you think that kind of detracts from dilutes the talent?
I mean, I thought I tr personally, I mean, the wellness division itself, I really enjoy.
Mhm.
I think those women are incredibly strong. Just watching some of them train is out of control, in my opinion. Like,
Mhm.
I don't lift heavy like that. What I see these women doing, I mean, they could kick my ass. These girls are no joke. These women that are doing that division, and I do think, I mean, I like that the sport has grown so much. I mean, I think that it's a positive thing. Um, I don't know if they continue to add more and more different. I think that could get a little, but I think where it's at right now, I think it's a nice mix. I mean, I feel like there's a division for almost anyone.
Mhm.
If you want to compete
Yeah,
in the NPC or the IFBB and then eventually the IFBB, like there's something for everyone, everyone's
sure.
body type.
Yeah.
So I think that helps.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you on that. I am not in the camp of, oh, don't add more divisions. I think more divisions is great, but I do think there is a fine line. And maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's something out there that eventually could get adopted that I just don't know about, or is not even active right now. But at this point, it looks like wherever your structure falls, you have somewhere to go, and that's important. So.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think like you said, for I think the wellness there was a need, I think, for it because you had a lot of women trying to do bikini that just their legs were way too big.
They just stopped training legs, like period, and still we're
Yeah.
too big for the division. Yeah,
So yeah, I think wellness was cool. I like it. I like watching it too
Mhm.
at the pro shows that it's pretty cool to see some of those physiques. Like they look like they're statues.
Yeah,
Like it's not real.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. So I mean, I did want to ask you, like, how is? I know we're kind of getting close to that end time for you, but how was your prep for this Olympia? Like, did it go smooth? Did you have some bumps? How did everything go? Is going, I should
yeah.
say.
So I have to be honest. I mean, this has probably been the most challenging prep of my entire fitness career
Mm.
so far. Um, not only did I moved, made a huge major life change in the middle of the prep, which was my choice. I didn't have to do that. So I'm not, that was something that I decided we wanted to do. Um, so, there was a little stress and things with that got, um, of course you plan ahead as much as you can, but you can't plan for it. You don't know what's going to happen, especially with moving. Like I said, it was like a week-long process to draw. We drove from
Yeah.
Texas to New
Wow.
Jersey. So,
Quite a long.
um,
I imagine that's. I don't know, but I imagine that sounds like it's a long drive.
yeah, it took us 4 days.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sure.
We stayed overnight places, and of course it was like planned in. We need to stay overnight places so I can like get train and not just drive straight through every single day. It was like I need to make sure that I'm getting my training in and think so it was like on the road, but you make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Um and the other thing, The last 2.5 years, it's been kind of one thing after the next with my body as far as injuries. Um, I got so lucky for so long as a fitness competitor of, I was just riding that high wave of like everything was good, no injuries. And then it was like the last 2 years, little things started popping up left and right. And I'm getting a little bit, I'm 37, I'll be 38 in January. And there's women, in their early 40s still doing fitness, 50s doing fitness, even, we have master's fitness. So I'm not really old by any means, but things are starting to really be worn down. And specifically, this time I've been having pretty serious issues with my feet.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm having a lot of essentially like nerve damage. I have some herniated discs in my neck, which were causing me a lot of problems over the last 2 years, and that's kind of subsided. I've gotten some treatment and different things on for that. Um, Last year I had a knee injury that never fully healed. It was, I had it going into the Olympia last year. Um, So I'm kind of still dealing with that. It comes and goes kind of thing. I'll obviously getting treatments for that. And then this situation about a week before we moved to Texas, um, it was like to the point where I could barely walk. I'm getting a lot of nerve feedback
Is
in
it like
my,
is it neuropathy is what you're getting, or are you dealing with something else, like
it's not
resonating?
neuropathy. Yeah, it's not neuropathy. It's essentially, when my foot's going into flexion, um, just those nerves I, they're either entrapped or they're firing
Mhm.
at the wrong time. So when I'm walking, it's that continuous like zap, like getting, it's really painful.
Mm.
Um,
I can't even imagine. Mm.
and so essentially, it was about 6 weeks ago where, for the last 6 weeks, I was unable to train my fitness routine or my fitness routine skills, because I needed to let this rest. And so I was doing like all my cardio on the bike.
Mhm.
I needed to, the doctors advised me to stop doing any type of impact, which, as you know, for a
Yeah.
fitness competitor, it's like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, that's like impossible. How do I do that?
Yeah, and also that affects, your level of conditioning because a lot of my training normally is plyometrics and that kind of, so that helps me with my conditioning, But I think that's how I got into the situation I'm in right now is years and years and years of just pounding on my feet.
Mhm.
Um, so anyway, I'm happy though to tell you that, over the last 3 to 4 days, I started actually getting better. It's
That's
getting better.
that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And um, I've been getting a lot of different treatments, and I think what's actually helping me the most is I started doing a dry needling regimen. I don't know if you've heard of the
Mm.
dry needling.
I'm trying to remember what it is. No, can you give me like a brief synopsis of what that is?
So basically, it's like these tiny little filament needles. And so for me, this is like a posterior chain nerve issue, like from my sciatic down all the way through,
I
my
gotcha.
hamstring into my calf down,
Mhm.
into that. It's, have you ever heard of tarsal tunnel syndrome?
Yes.
So that's what I have in my feet, and
Okay.
it's coming from, the nerves entrapped, and it's um so just trying to get that nerve to all of those muscles to stop compressing on that nerve. And
Mhm.
it really starts up in your sciatic nerve and goes down through your hamstring, into your tibial nerve, down into your.
Yeah.
So that is what is messed up on me. So basically, what they do for the dry needling is they insert these needles. They're not very big. They're very very thin. But they stick them all the way into the muscle,
Mhm.
right along the nerve track, and then they use like a little. It looks like I'm not exactly sure what it is, but they put it on the needle once the needle's inserted, and it makes your nerves fire and the muscle
So
twitch.
it's almost like some kind of conduction through the needle into your muscle, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've been getting that done, all the way from my hamstring down and through my calf, all the way into my foot. So I get 15 to 20 needles each time, as they go down that chain. Um,
And that
but
helps, eh?
it's the only thing so far. I've tried a lot of different things. Plus I've been resting it.
Mhm.
Um, but like I said, this past weekend, I was doing some flips, practicing my routine, and it's still feeling all right. So I'm crossing my fingers. There was a few days where I was thinking maybe I was gonna have to pull out of the Olympia.
Ooh, that's
You
scary.
know, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure because I didn't know, like, was this gonna get better or not? And I really couldn't put any weight on my right foot. Like my foot got so weak from just whatever's going on that, I couldn't even do like a squat jump or
Mm.
jump rope.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm back in business, for
Nice.
now.
Nice.
I'm taking it day to day.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'm wishing you well. I'm trying, make sure, I guess, whatever, if it's working, keep doing it because, keep resting it because you're going to be the Olympia before no time, really.
yeah,
So,
and it's one thing that I was letting it get to me, for a little, it was like I'm losing all this time with my prep. But I started looking back on the last 6 weeks, feeling like, yeah, I wasn't able to practice my skills. I was still doing hand balancing. I could practice things that weren't involving my feet.
mhm.
So there were things I could do. Um, and so I was doing that, but I also, it I changed my diet. I tightened my diet up a lot earlier in this prep than I normally would. Because I was, trying to offset for the intensity of some of the training that I wasn't able to do.
Sure, sure.
Um, and I still was doing a lot of cardio, but just on the bike.
Mhm.
So I'm actually, and now that I'm going to be able to start, God willing, these next few weeks continue in this positive direction where I have about 5 weeks to really finish strong. Um, I'm really excited to see actually what my physique ends up looking like. I mean, I'm 113 pounds right now,
Mhm.
and that's the lightest I've ever been this far out. Um, so I'm curious to see, what the end result's going to be of like, this was a little bit of a different prep for me. Like I said, I had to change up my strategy and adapt because I had this injury. So I'm really excited to see what I end up looking like. Um,
I wonder if you're gonna have the best performance you've, had since since you started. Sometimes like it works like that. The most difficult experiences you have end up yielding like the best results, It can happen like that.
and it's funny you just said that because I've actually thought of that recently too, thinking, like how funny would it be if like this ends up being like the best performance I've ever had on the Olympia stage, And you're right. I think the universe has a really weird way of things working out sometimes, when you least expect it. So, I'm a pretty positive, optimistic person, and I not saying I don't ever have negative like feelings and thoughts. Of
Mhm.
course, we all do, but
Sure.
um I think this is just another example of why I love the sport is what this situation really, like I said, God willing, I nothing happens between now and then, and I'm able to perform. Um, this is gonna be one that a prep I'll never forget. It really has taught me, especially the last 6 weeks, a lot about just persevering through things and,
Mhm.
how many days I wanted to really just give up because I kept thinking it's not going to get better, it's not going to get better, but I stuck to the plan, right? I stuck to the plan, like kept the diet tight, like just kept believing like it's going to work out, it's going to work out. You have to adapt, you have to you don't quit, you change the plan.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all. And I'm really already, no matter what the outcome is at the Olympia, as far as like we talked about before, placing and all of that, I'm already extremely proud of myself for just pushing through this because there were so many days, like I said, over the last 6 weeks where I just felt like maybe this is it. Maybe I should just be done. I
Mm,
don't think I can do
mhm.
that. It was very painful. Just that suffering, it was like,
Yeah.
I think this one got me. I think it got me, but it didn't. And again, that just, I think, taught me a lot about myself. Um, and yeah, and I'm excited. So I'm going to be bringing the energy because this one's going to be really important to me that I made it.
I mean, just getting there is an accomplishment after everything that you just told me. Just making it on stage is going to be a win.
You're 100% right. And that's, you know, what my dad actually was asking me a couple days ago, about kind of like we were talking about the goal and what's the goal. And actually said to him, the goal at this point is to make it to November 3rd. Like that is the goal right now,
Yeah.
is to get out there and, you know, and I'm confident I'm going to make it. I'm confident I'm going to make it. And I think, like I said, that's going to give me a little extra fire inside to, just be extra grateful this time when I'm out there. And those 2 minutes that I have to perform my routine, I'll remember everything that I went through to get there this year. And I think
Yeah.
that'll show on stage.
Yeah. And I think the relief that you're going to feel after you're done with your routine, you accomplished it and it's over, and then you look back and you see how much you went through to get there and now it's done. I think you're going to feel that kind of, I don't know, euphoric relief, that you've accomplished what you set out to do.
Yeah, and I'm definitely I gotta say I am like a kind of an emotional type person with this kind of stuff. So I have a feeling this will be one of those performances where as soon as I get off stage, I'll probably be like crying my eyes out. Just because I'll be like you said, that feeling is gonna rush
Yeah.
over me of like, I did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm
Well,
not even gonna care about anything else. It's just gonna be I did it.
yeah.
I made it.
Those are gonna be happy tears. So there's nothing
Yep.
nothing wrong with that. So, well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it. I know you're very busy, so I really, appreciate your time. Just to end this, if somebody wanted to reach out to you to get you on more podcasts or pick your brain about training or competitions, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is SLK Fit 1020. And that's really the best way. That's where I have all my fitness stuff. I use that page solely for my fitness. So that's how,
Awesome.
and I do answer like messages and, maybe sometimes delayed, but I do. And so yeah, that would be the best way.
Awesome. And guys,
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and guys, I'm gonna link everything at the bottom, make it easier for you. And then go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. And Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having
All right.
me. I appreciate you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.